Sobering Times with Daniel Lubin, back here in the West Adams District, landmark city location in Los Angeles, California. It used to be considered the West Side. Like when kids say West Side, this is what they were referring to. But now when they say West Side, they're talking about Santa Monica. That was just mangroves back in the day. But we're back here with Marlon. We were talking about surprises that got him on this journey. So I'm gonna say something quick. Gil Scott Heron, he talked about the revolution would not be televised. I was always confused what he meant because the riots were televised. Everybody saw it. But he said, no, what we meant was the change that it took to get those people out there rioting. It's a self-talk that changed within each individual. So my question is, along this process, what are some of your self-talk that had to be changed?
Everything had to be changed in the way that my mind operated. So, when I got here, meaning when I got to, you guys, the way that I thought about myself, I had low self-esteem. I had done a lot of damage to myself and to my family. So everything had to change. And for everything to change, you know what they say, only one thing has to change, and that's everything. So for one thing to change and everything meant that my mentality, the way I thought about people, the way I looked at people, the way I thought about myself, but I didn't know how to change that, right? So spiritual principles changed that. I didn't know that just spiritual principles and a power could change the way that I thought, right? So the self-talk for me was all negative self-talk. But what happens as you go to meetings and you listen to people speak, you start, some positivity starts to go in and some self-esteem starts to go in, and you learn how to do different things. And so what changes my thinking is not the way that I think. What changes my thinking is my actions. So I go to a meeting and I make coffee. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking differently about people. Because you know how we are, people in nature, like, oh, this coffee's too strong. Who made this coffee? It's too hot. Man, this is some delicious coffee. Then you start to hear all these opinions that people have, and you start to realize that you can't change everybody, but you can change yourself. And then how do I change myself? Right? There has to be, I have to believe or lose, all my old ideas have to go out the window. Right? Because I think that, in and of myself, I can do something about what's wrong with me. Right?
I want to ask something on that point. All my old ideas got to change. Because these undesirable behaviors that I so desperately want to eliminate, it's being fueled by a narrative, by a self-talk. So the undesirable behaviors are something I saw as a solution to this unrest I was feeling inside. So what he's explaining is, he's telling you he has to make he has to make peace with his past self so that his current self could stay motivated and energized for his future self if he's going to experience this transformation. So
So the self-talk has to become, for me, God talk. Because if I'm having a conversation with myself, then something's wrong, right? Because therein lies the problem. The problem is the way that I think, and you can't fix a problem with the problem. There has to be a power greater than me. There has to be a power greater than me. But if I am the power and I am the authority for my life, therein lies the problem.
yeah,
Right. I'm dependent upon me so much that I think I could solve the problem. And the problem is the way that I think. So there has to be, for me, a spiritual solution to the way that I think.
Now, let me tell you something about that power he's talking about. That power that he's talking about that has totally revolutionized how he sees himself, how he carries himself. It has allowed him to get a reputation that when you go somewhere with this man, somebody want to say hi, somebody want to ask him to come be their circuit speaker. So the question here is the difference with reputation and character. You got a stellar reputation, but we know reputation is given to you by others. Now, in terms of character, where do you think you have more focus? What's more important to you? Because we need reputation. Reputation gets us laid, gets us hired, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But character travels everywhere you go. Where do you think your big focus has been?
Well, character is, am I choosing comfort or am I choosing character? So the comfort for me comes in in the defect. You know what I mean? I'm a person that likes to feel good about everything that I do. You know what I mean? I like to feel good. It's like before I got sober, I used to think you're supposed to feel good all the time, which is one of the reasons why I got loaded. Because I'm living, it wasn't reality. It wasn't reality. So now that I'm living in reality, I know that character building is very uncomfortable. Character building is, like you say, Marlon, can you come speak at this meeting in the Valley on a Friday night at 7:30? And I know it's going to take me an hour to get to the Valley from Los Angeles. But for some reason, my mouth says yes. And therein lies the character building. Because I don't realize on the way to that meeting, I turn the radio off, I'm in prayer and I'm in meditation. And I'm praying and meditating probably when I wouldn't have been praying and meditating. You know what I mean? I get to the meeting and then I see somebody I haven't seen in a long time. Or I share at the meeting and someone gets something from something I said, right? That's why I was saying earlier that I'm in the business of saving lives, right? No one can help like I can help, right? Because you may have had two parents that were drug addicts and you may think you can't get out of this mindset. And here I come. I'm smiling, I'm happy, and I'm saying, I had two parents who were drug addicts. It has nothing to do with why I'm here in the Valley talking on a Friday night. And you going, what? May have been blaming your mom and your dad for your problem all your life because it's we know that it's an inside job. I have to look within. And then how do I finally do that? How do I get within myself? Well, we know how to get within ourselves, right? Causes and conditions. I got to get down to causes and conditions of how I look within. And once I look within myself and see, like, you know, I'm resentful, I'm in fear, you know, my sexual conduct's way out of whack, I get to do something about that. I get to confess that to another human being. And then I'm not alone anymore. See, I'm so selfish and self-centered that I think only these things happen to me. I didn't know they happened to you too. But when I'm talking to you, you're going, me too. You're going, me too. Those things, and I'm like not alone anymore. I'm not by myself, right? So where two are gathered, therein lies the recovery. I recover from what seemed to be a hopeless condition. What seemed to be a hopeless condition, I got hope.
Yep. So my core values are established by the time I'm 5 years old. And what I learned as I became an adult, trying to eliminate these self-destructive patterns I had, I learned that my core values were all about how do I get to be a special person? And I realized there are some principles. I need to live by virtue instead of values. Virtues are for the society, like hope, courage, faith, perseverance, dedication to others in terms of service. Whereas my core values were physical shape, so I could run from the police. You see what I'm saying? Putting on an image like a tough guy, like running after pretty girls. You know what I'm saying? So I want to touch on some of your core values that you brought in here that you've had to eliminate and replace.
Well, you know, I'm still working on that. You know what I mean? We talked about that earlier. I believe we talked about, you know, when you asked me about my parents, do I regret that? Or is that something I hold on to or whatever you asked? And it's like I'm a human being, so my mind goes back to, you know, being raised and looking at, you know, I mean, I could open my drawer in the kitchen sometimes and get a spoon, and my mind to go in the back of the spoon is black.
What is that? Why would you do that? Explain. What do you mean?
My mother shot heroin, so she would burn all of the back of the spoons were all burnt black. So, I mean, my mind could go back there. Do I regret that? No, because when I actually go in my kitchen and look at the spoon, it's not. So I can see how far that, I've come. Or I can see how far this God has brought me. But it also lets me know that this thing that I suffer from, that's centered in my thinking, it needs to be treated right now. So it's like, God, can you help me? And not, God, can you help me not see the back of the spoon is black. God, could you help me to see how far I've come, how far you've brought me, right? How much I need you, right? Because I was saying that I can't afford to have a bad thought about anybody because it poisons me, it damages me. So,
Now, I'm going to tell you guys, I met Marlon on a long walk on New Year's Eve. He was talking about this beautiful Greek girl that had left him, and he was hurting, he was in pain. If you don't know, most friendships are built on problems. You have a problem, I help you with it. And so we're going to talk about how much he's a different guy now from that night 30 years ago when we met.